Get a life. My sister mocked me at her job celebration. Stop clinging to successful people. I just smiled until she saw my name on her paycheck. I sat in my usual corner at the brunch spot my family frequented every weekend. The coffee in front of me had gone cold, but I kept stirring it slowly, an old habit that helped me stay calm. No one paid attention to me because, as always, the spotlight belonged to my sister, Vivian. She sat with her legs crossed, morning sunlight catching the sparkle of the diamond ring on her hand. "Your old job really was a snooze fest," she laughed, her voice loud enough to echo through the cafe. It's kind of hilarious that someone in their 30s still doesn't have a real job. I heard every word, every pause in her sentence. No one else laughed. Just Vivian, the only one amused by her own joke. I didn't look at her. I just pressed my lips together and kept stirring my cold coffee. My mother awkwardly murmured, "Vivian, don't be like that," but my sister only shrugged. To her, silence was proof of failure. My father tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, something about the eggs Benedict being a little too salty, but Vivian's smirk lingered like a hook waiting for a reaction. I said nothing. I was never the talkative one at family gatherings, and somehow, that made them assume I had nothing worth saying. But the truth was, ever since I chose to live behind the scenes, silence had become the space where I built an entire world, one none of them could imagine. I remember exactly when I first realized that some of the greatest things didn't need to be shown off. I was 27, sitting beside Sam, my best friend from college, as we typed the first lines of code for what would later become the core of an intelligent data analytics system used by banks, hospitals, and even government agencies. Now, at 33, I'm the co-founder of Dataloom, a tech company valued at over $80 million, but no one in my family knows. I never appeared on the official website. In interviews, Sam was the face of the company. And me? I chose to stay behind the spotlight. My name only appeared on internal documents, investor agreements, and Vivian's pay stub. Funny, isn't it? The sister who never hesitated to mock my quietness is now applying to the company I helped build, completely unaware that the person reviewing her application is the fulfiller she's mocked for years. I watched her chatter on, bragging about the now-defunct accounting firm she worked for. But it's all good. She waved it off. I'm a problem solver. I'm targeting a new company, something called Dataloom. Heard they're hiring. My heart skipped a beat. For the first time during the meal, I looked up, then quickly looked back down, careful to keep the flicker in my eyes unnoticed. She kept going. I already applied. If they bring me in, I'll handle their budget better than anyone there. If they pass me up, it's their loss. I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. That sentence, bold and smug, was a carbon copy of the lines she used to throw at me, claiming I'd never get anywhere hiding in the shadows. And maybe she'll never realize it, but in that very shadow, I built an empire, one she's now about to walk into under my leadership. Still, I chose to remain silent, not out of fear, but because I knew the truth would speak for itself. I remember my 12th birthday vividly. While everyone sang happy birthday, Vivian burst out of the living room holding a giant gold trophy. Our baby just won the state dance competition. My mom beamed, wrapping her arms around Vivian. I stood by my cake, candles flickering in front of me, but no one asked what I wished for, and I didn't even bother blowing them out. Vivian was always like that, bright, loud, always giving people something to clap for. Me? I quietly gathered my gifts, went to my room, opened the old laptop Dad gave me the year before, and kept building my first data model. Even as a child, I loved what others found boring. I liked taking toys apart to see how they worked. I loved figuring out why a video game ran so smoothly. I loved the feeling of writing a block of code and watching it work flawlessly. My mom used to say, "Eleanor can sit for hours and you won't hear a sound." Dad used to joke, "We've got a firework and a flashlight in this house, guess which is which?" No guessing needed. Vivian was the firework, I was the flashlight. Steady, but overlooked. As we grew older, the gap between us widened. Vivian studied art, made a few appearances on local TV thanks to her dramatic performances. I studied computer science at a tech institute. No one in the family remembers the school's name. When I graduated, they forgot the date entirely. They were too busy planning Vivian's fashion line launch. I don't blame them. Sometimes I thought maybe I just wasn't interesting enough, but silence slowly became the space where I found my value. When Sam and I started Dataloom, all we had were 2 beat-up laptops and a dream to build a flexible analytics system that could predict user behavior in real time. Sam was the talker. He pitched to investors, did press interviews, ran meetings. I was the one backstage, writing every line of code, fixing every bug. A year later, a major bank signed a trial contract. 2 years in, our system was integrated into finance, healthcare, and risk analysis platforms. By year 3, Dataloom was valued at $83 million. I held 49% of the shares, but ask anyone, they'd only know Sam Fletcher. As for Eleanor Green, never featured in a headline. And that was how I wanted it. I didn't care for hollow handshakes, flashing cameras, or whispers behind my back. I wanted to work, to build, to help people make better decisions with what I created. As for Vivian, after her own fashion startup failed due to financial mismanagement, she went back to accounting at a small firm. Then came layoffs. Now she's pinning her hopes on a new opportunity she has no idea I created. I don't know if she'll ever see me as an equal. To Vivian, I'll always be the little sister with her head in the clouds and a bunch of old laptops, but she's about to walk into a space where every wall, every budget model, Every analytics tool was designed by me. And what I wonder most is this: when she sees my name, Eleanor Green, at the bottom corner of her paycheck or the next budget draft, will she recognize it? Or will she still believe I'm just a faded extra in the dazzling world she chases? A part of me hopes she never finds out. Another part wants to see her face when the truth finally hits. I don't need her admiration. I just want her to stop looking down on me. That night, back in my quiet apartment on the 18th floor, Seattle sky was wrapped in a soft mist like a velvet curtain after a show. I pulled out my laptop, logged into Datalume's internal system, thousands of lines of code and reports I knew by heart. The first notification popped up from HR. Recommended candidate, Vivian Green. I leaned back in my chair, eyes settling on the file on screen. I had expected this moment, but still, my heart paused for a beat. Her smiling photo, dressed in a beige blazer, stood out on the application form. I skimmed through her experience, skills, and the internal reviewer's note. Confident demeanor, strong communicator, well suited for the budget analyst role. Recommend for next round interview. I didn't type a word, just clicked the 3 dots in the corner. A window appeared. Forward, code, cop, pro. I clicked approve. She got the job. No one at the company, except Sam, knew I was a co-founder. From day one, we agreed to use only Sam's name on all media and public documents. I didn't want my image floating around the internet. I'd seen too many people lose their personal lives chasing fame. I didn't need praise, I needed freedom. So within Datalume, I was simply Eleanor, the senior technical advisor who usually worked remotely. I only came into the office once a week after 6 p.m. The rest of the time, I led projects, approved spending, and mapped out strategies, all from behind the scenes. Sam was the one in front of cameras, shaking hands with investors and speaking at tech conferences. He always respected my choice, never once revealing my identity to employees or the press. I used to wonder if that decision was the right one. But now, watching Vivian step into the world I built with my own hands, I was certain staying silent was the only way to make this moment interesting. On her first day at work, I stayed home just as scheduled, but I turned on the internal camera system, something very few people knew I designed. From a low-angle view in the shared kitchen on the 9th floor, I saw her standing near the espresso machine, eyes wide with surprise as she looked at the digital bulletin board displaying the company's ongoing projects. "This is the new company that hired me," she told a colleague proudly. "Word is, the 2 founders are super private. No one's ever seen the other one. Might just be a legal placeholder." I chuckled softly. It wasn't the first time I'd heard someone question the existence of the second co-founder. That afternoon, Sam video called me. "She's off to a decent start," he said, sipping coffee. "Confident, maybe a bit showy, but competent. Are you sure about this? She still has no idea who you are, Eleanor." "For now, let's keep it that way," I replied. "Just don't slip. If she's good, this is a great opportunity. If she's not, the truth will come out faster." This wasn't about revenge. I didn't want her to fail, nor did I seek payback. I just wanted to know, how would Vivian behave when no one recognized her? When there was no spotlight, no audience clapping? A week passed, then 2. Each time I came into the office after hours, she had already left. I kept my routine, approving budgets at night, reviewing HR files in the silence of empty halls and idle elevators. Until one day, I was in the basement server room checking the security system when I heard high heels echoing in the hallway. I stepped out and there she was, frozen in the doorway. "Eleanor?" she asked, startled and suspicious. I nodded calmly. She squinted. "What are you doing down here? Only senior management has access to this area." I smiled. "Well, I guess I have special access." She tilted her head, about to say something when Sam stepped out from the adjacent room holding a folder. "Hey, Eleanor, could you take a look at the new AI deployment plan? Needs your sign-off by Friday." I took the file and looked back at Vivian. Her eyes froze. There was no need for words. I knew in that moment the seed of doubt had been planted. And now I'd see. Would she finally see me? Or still view me as the harmless shadow she always believed I was? That morning, Seattle had a light drizzle. I had just signed off on the latest quarterly report when my phone rang. It was Sam. "Eleanor, something funny just happened." "I think Vivian's starting to get curious," he said with a hint of amusement. I looked up at my screen. A new email from accounting popped up. "NS signature found in internal budget file. Please confirm approving authority." My heart slowed. It was time. Nearly 2 months had passed since Vivian officially joined Datalume as a budget analyst. In that time, she had begun earning favor in a few departments, thanks to her confidence and persuasive skills. I had watched from afar, quietly approving her proposals and saying nothing. But she had started noticing details. During one budget approval for marketing, Vivian stumbled upon a file signed with an S signature clearly labeled Eleanor Green, NS. Alongside it was the co-founder's ID code. I knew she wouldn't let that go. The next morning, I overheard a snippet of conversation in the cafe downstairs. A young colleague whispered to Vivian, "Who's this NS person anyway? Like a ghost in the system. Never seen them, but they sign off on everything big." Vivian smirked. "Probably just a legal figurehead. I don't trust names without faces." Behind a wooden partition, I tightened my grip on my coffee cup. Don't trust. She'd learn soon enough. 3 days later, she walked straight into accounting and requested access to the full budget record for the most recent quarter. With her clearance, she opened file after file until she reached the one where my name appeared again and again beside documents outlining Datalume's financial core. Not just signatures, but dates, file IDs, legal assessments, every key piece carried my name. The same sister who believed I lived off the family's kindness was now staring at proof that I wasn't just any employee. I was the one who had approved her paycheck, the one behind the very reports she worked with every day. That afternoon, I got a system alert. Internal access request from account Vivian Green, Dartag Datalume, founding records. She had reached the master file. I pictured her sitting there, soft blue light illuminating her face as she saw the founding documents for the first time. Eleanor Green and Samuel Fletcher. 50/50 ownership. Role description, Chief Technical Architect. Miss Green. Her heart must have clenched. I knew her. When she's shocked, she doesn't scream or cause a scene. She goes silent, but her eyes blaze. Then she starts trying to prove this can't be real. That same afternoon, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. I wanted to see her reaction with my own eyes. Sure enough, when I entered the pantry, I saw Vivian standing alone, gripping the edge of the counter, staring at a printed page. I approached gently. "You okay?" She turned, eyes locked on mine, furious and confused. "Eleanor," she said, voice tight. "You're the co-founder?" I didn't answer immediately. I just nodded. "How long?" she asked. "Since the beginning," I replied calmly. "Sam and I started this company in a tiny room near Capitol Hill, back when you thought I was unemployed." Vivian laughed, not mockingly, but bitterly, half disbelief, half self-directed irony. "So all this time, you were signing my paycheck? I worked under you?" I nodded again. "Not out of pride, Vivian, just doing my job. You're capable, so I approved your promotion. If you weren't, I'd have done the opposite." She fell silent, eyes dropping to the floor. I pulled a sheet from my pocket, a budget plan for an upcoming initiative on tech education for underprivileged kids. "We're launching this soon. If you're interested, I think you'd be a great fit." She didn't take the paper, but her eyes changed. Something had shifted. I turned to leave, not pushing her. She'd need time, but for the first time in years, I saw in her eyes not scorn, but a silent question. How many times have I misjudged my little sister? The 5-year Datalume anniversary gala was held in a glass building by Lake Union, where chandelier light danced like ripples across the floor. I stood in the guest dressing room, staring into the mirror. A long black dress, minimalist, but elegant, fit snugly against a frame worn from years of all-nighters. My hair was pinned neatly, lips brushed with soft pink. I didn't want to stand out, but it wasn't about what I wanted anymore. Sam knocked, peeking in. "Ready, Eleanor?" I swallowed hard. Not really, but I guess no one's ever truly ready to step out of the dark. He laughed. "You're not stepping out, you're stepping up." We walked onto the stage from the wings as the lights dimmed. The MC had just finished. "And now, please welcome the two co-founders of Datalume, Samuel Fletcher and Eleanor Green." Claws erupted loud, clear, electric. Every eye turned toward me as I stepped into the light for the first time officially and without a mask. I smiled quietly, but with purpose. And then I saw Vivian. She stood at the back of the room, one hand clutching a champagne glass she hadn't touched. Her face stunned. Her world flipped upside down. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it. On the day we landed our first $1 million investment, that moment when something no one thought was real becomes undeniable. Sam spoke first. He shared our journey from his mom's garage to Datalume's current HQ about server crashes at 2 a.m., deadlines that left us passed out on keyboards. When he passed the mic to me, the room fell silent. I took a deep breath. "Hi, everyone, I'm Eleanor Green, and I guess, for many of you, this is the first time you've actually seen me." A gentle wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. It wasn't mocking. It was warm surprise. I continued, "I'm not great at public speaking, and I never imagined I'd be up here. But 5 years ago, Sam and I had two things, an idea and a belief that technology could be built on trust." I glanced down at the audience. Vivian was still standing there, no longer holding her drink. Her eyes were fixed on me, as if trying to make sense of a stranger wearing the face of someone she once knew. "I know I'm not the public face of this company," I went on, "and that was entirely my choice. But today, I felt I owed you my presence, not for fame, but out of gratitude." Applause rose again. I nodded in thanks, then stepped back to let the MC close the ceremony. As the light shifted to dinner, I made my way toward the buffet, looking for a quiet corner. But with every step, someone stopped me to chat. "We thought you were a legend." One software engineer laughed. "Didn't think you actually existed." I smiled, made a few polite replies, but my mind kept drifting back to Vivian. I glanced toward the pillar where she'd stood. Empty. She had left, and I didn't know when she'd gone or how much of my speech she'd heard. But I felt something. An empty space quietly opening inside me, where there should have been a warm look from someone close. That night back in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sank into the sofa. My phone lit up with dozens of congratulatory messages from colleagues, partners, even my parents. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." Words can't describe it, but nothing from Vivian. I replayed the live stream of the event on the company website, skipped ahead to my speech, then hit pause. I didn't need to watch it again. I just wanted to know one thing. In that moment, under the spotlight, what did Vivian see? A stranger? Or the little sister she once believed would never amount to anything? 2 days after the gala, I arrived at the office earlier than usual, not for a meeting or to sign off on documents, just to finish something personal. I opened the drawer in the 10th floor conference room and pulled out a small walnut box I'd kept since college. Inside, I placed a navy linen-covered notebook, a black ink pen, and a handwritten card. It took me over an hour to write just a few lines. Not fancy, not poetic, just honest. Vivian, thank you for your efforts at Datalum. You're truly capable, and I believe you'll go far. I'm proud to work with you even if we began in silence. Eleanor. I folded the card, tucked it inside the notebook, and handed it to the internal delivery assistant with a quiet instruction. Please give this to Vivian Green. No sender name. I wasn't expecting a reply. The gift wasn't an olive branch. It was just an open door, quiet and without pressure, so she could walk through if she chose to. The rest of the week passed with no message. No email. No thank you. But I noticed a few things. Vivian no longer sat back with crossed arms during meetings. She started taking detailed notes, asked sharp questions, and gave focused input. One afternoon, I stood outside the hallway listening as she presented a revised budget strategy for an AI project that had gone over cost. Her voice was calm, clear. Her eyes no longer carried competitiveness, but something rarer. Focus. I didn't walk in. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, and nodded silently. The following week, HR announced that Vivian had proposed a new internal sponsorship initiative for junior employees, especially female interns in tech roles. She recommended allocating a portion of the CSR budget to host a series of free career workshops led by department heads. I read the proposal 3 times slowly. Initiative name, touch the screen, touch the future. And right below it in italics, inspired by the quiet mission of Eleanor Green. I set the file down on the table, pressing my lips together gently. That afternoon, I stopped by the pantry as usual. Vivian was there, pouring hot water into a tea carafe. When she turned and saw me, we both froze for a second. But this time, her gaze was softer. No tension, no defensiveness. I was about to pass when she suddenly spoke. The pen is beautiful, and the notebook. I've written a few pages. I turned to her. I'm glad you liked it. She gave a small nod. I will think I ever really understood you, or maybe I just never tried. I smiled without answering. There is something I want to say, she continued, voice lower. You didn't have to give me a chance, but you did, and you never brought any of it up. You didn't diminish me to prove a point. That says more about you than anything else ever could. For the first time, I no longer saw Vivian as the teenager basking in the spotlight with a trophy in hand. I saw a woman learning to let go of pride and truly see others. I don't know if I can make it right, she said slowly, but I'll try. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my chest. We don't need to tally up the past. We just start from today. We stood side by side for a moment longer. No explanation needed, no apology required, just a quiet understanding. This time, things would be different. And somehow, they were. Vivian stopped being the loudest person in the room. She learned to listen, gave space to younger voices, and didn't shy away from tasks she once thought beneath her. And I stopped hiding behind my screen. I began speaking at technical briefings, no longer dodging the camera. I stood before visiting students and shared my journey, not to boast, but to show them you don't have to be the loudest to make something big. One weekend afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I saw Vivian standing before the recognition wall. The list of top contributors for the quarter. Her name was at the top. She looked at me and gave a small nod. Thank you for not giving up on me. I smiled. We're just getting started, Vivian. On Sunday, the whole family gathered at our usual brunch spot on the corner of Green Lake. Everything was just as it had always been. Dark wood chairs, sunlight filtering through striped curtains, and the smell of warm waffles filling the room. But something in the air felt different. I sat at the long table on the balcony joined by my parents, Uncle Henry, Aunt Laura, and Vivian. She arrived 5 minutes late, but instead of wearing her usual flashy outfit or sparkling heels, she had on a simple white blouse, dark jeans, her hair neatly tied back, no makeup. As she approached me, her eyes hesitated, but then she gave a small nod. I nodded back. No words needed, just a look. That was enough. My mom was telling a story about her new flower bed when Uncle Henry suddenly chuckled and turned to me. So, Eleanor, are you still doing that little freelance thing from home, or just typing up random computer codes all day? I smiled, not surprised. He still thought programming was just a souped-up video game. I didn't even have time to answer before a voice rang out clearly. Uncle, Vivian said, setting down her coffee and looking straight ahead. Eleanor is the smartest person I've ever known, and without her, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. All eyes turned to her. I tilted my head slightly, but Vivian didn't shrink back like she usually did when put in the spotlight. She stood firm, gaze steady, voice unwavering. I used to think I knew everything, she continued, but Eleanor taught me something more important than knowledge, humility. Her quietness doesn't mean she has nothing to say. It means she chooses to act instead of show off. Uncle Henry looked stunned. Aunt Laura gave a subtle nod. My mother reached over and gently squeezed my hand. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. And in that look, I saw everything words couldn't express, an unspoken apology, unvoiced gratitude, and respect earned not by blood, but by truth. A moment later, the conversation shifted back to the weather and the upcoming holidays, but I knew something important had just happened. After the meal, as people began to leave the table, I stood up to grab my bag. Vivian stepped over. jacket in hand. She didn't say a word, but as she passed by, she whispered softly, "You don't have to forgive me, but I'll never be the same person again." I turned to her, and for the first time in a very long while, I gave her a genuine smile. "I know," I said, "and I never needed you to apologize." We walked out of the brunch spot in silence, but there was no longer any tension between us. What had happened wasn't forgotten, but it no longer lived in me like a wound. That afternoon, I went home, made myself a cup of tea, opened my laptop, and stared out the window toward Lake Union. Just as I took a sip of the warm tea, a message from Sam popped up. "Heard brunch wasn't half bad today," I replied. "Not bad. Let's call it a new beginning. And maybe, sometimes, forgiveness doesn't come through words. It comes when people finally see each other, not through judgment, but through late, honest understanding." Vivian and I will never be picture-perfect sisters, but now, we're no longer standing on opposite sides. We're two grown women who've learned from their own mistakes. And to me, that's a beautiful enough ending to one chapter and a gentle start to the next. The story between Vivian and me taught me that sometimes understanding doesn't come from grand apologies, but from quiet, genuine change. It took me years to accept that being seen isn't the only measure of worth. But when truth is finally acknowledged, no rebuttal is needed. Silence is enough to make people reflect. Real life doesn't ask for perfection, only the courage to grow and the grace to begin again. What do you think about Eleanor and Vivian's journey? Can a late understanding be enough to mend a relationship that once seemed broken? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.